Hi, this is Ivy from Scrappy Mania, and today we are going to create a flower. I found these punch at my local Tuesday morning, and I found the pear punch from McGill, which makes a rose, a cabbage rose, and I also found the snowflake, the small, actually this is the medium Highland snowflake punch, which creates a smaller rose, and then I have the large Highland snowflake. So let's go ahead and get started. So what you're also gonna need is one of these McGill stylus, or any kind of stylus that has a 12 millimeter ball with a 4 millimeter ball. And you're also gonna need a set of tweezers. You're gonna need a push pad and some paper. So I'm going to recycle some of these papers. Now what I did with this is I sprayed the paper with some of my color mist that I make homemade with printer paper. I also sprayed it with some heavy starch to kind of stiffen it up so it's nice and stiff. And the way to get your punch to punch these, because it's kind of thin, so the way I do it is I fold it in fours, then I take my punch, and it works very nicely when you do that because the paper's so thin that you really don't want to do it only one sheet. It doesn't punch as well, but when I do multiple sheets at a time of this thin paper, it works wonderful. So then you're just gonna go ahead and finish punching everything out, and then set that aside. So I'm just going to need like 12 petals, but usually what I do is I punch a bunch of them out, I twirl them all, or I shape them all, and then I use as many as need in order to fill the snowflake. So I'm going to show you how to make a cuff, because you're going to have to cuff your snowflake like this. So the way I did that is I took my snowflake. Now I have these clay cups that I created, and I'll put the tutorial or the link where I show you how to create these clay cups. These are perfect to create, to give your flowers form when it's a large flower like that. I don't like them as much for little petals. It does work a little bit, but it's not as good as when you use for a big flower. You can also create a smaller one for your petals. You can see here. You can use that one to form your petals. So you can create a smaller. And the good thing about creating your own clay cup that does this shape is that you can create it any size. So the size, it's unlimited. You can create different size of your clay depending on the size of your punch. So you can even make a little tiny one like this one for a small punch. So let me show you how it works. So you're going to go ahead and take your snowflake. So I'll do it with the snowflake. You put a little bit of starch, so I went ahead and sprayed it off camera. And then when you put it in your little clay cup, you just mainly press it down. And then once it takes the shape, then go ahead and put it aside to dry. And when it dries very nicely stiffed. You can do the same thing with your petals if you want to. You spray your petals, create the form like this, and then you can peel it off and let it dry. And it creates something like this if you let it dry. It's nice and stiff. But I'm impatient, so I like this more for when I do large flowers. But when I do petals, I think I'd like it to just take my embossing tool, and then I'm going to turn it over. So this is going to be my petal that's going to face up. I'm just going to roll it in. Okay, then I'm going to take my tweezers, I'm going to pinch it, and then I'm going to just make the shape with it. So I'm going to round my shapes like that. Okay, and put that aside. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with 12 of these petals. And I shall be back and show you how to put it together. I have all my petals formed, plus I have a large snowflake and a small snowflake to create my flowers. And this one's a little stiffer than this one, because this one, the advantage of using a clay cup, if you have one, is that when you put starch and you let it dry, it becomes very stiff, like you can see there, and it'll hold its form. When you do emboss it, it's not as stiff. Now, however, you can still emboss it and then spray it with a little bit of starch and let it dry, and it will become the same. It will do the same thing. So I already put a little bit of dab of glue on a surface. Either you can use a wax surface or whatever you have. I'm actually going to put it on this cutting mat. And then you're going to take your petal after it's been formed, and you're just going to put a little bit of glue at the bottom of the petal. And then you're going to put that right there. Just lay it right there. And that's pretty much it, what you do. So you're going to take another one, and you do the same thing. You keep layer these right next to each other, like you can see there. And using glue, the advantage of using glue instead of hot glue is I can still manipulate the petals a little bit. I'm just going to put another one here. And see, you keep putting them around like you see there. So each arm of the snowflake, so each of these arms of these snowflakes will get a petal. And put a little more glue. And I'm just using regular Craft Bond quick dry glue. You get that one is pretty cheap. It was about a couple of bucks at Walmart in the craft section. And it works pretty well, as you can see. No, you know, it does work nicely. Okay, so here's one of the petal. Completed this row. And now I'm ready to go ahead and put another row in between. So you're going to put another row in between the gaps. So wherever you see a gap, you want to go ahead and place a petal. There. See how I'm kind of going in between the gaps? So like right there, there's a gap between those two. Right here. So now I'll just put petal right there to cover that gap. Okay, so now you have that. I'm going to set that a little bit to set it to dry a little bit. Now I'm going to create the center. What I like to do is create the center bud of this. So you're going to take one and you're just going to roll it. Like that. Just roll it. And then put a little bit of craft glue. And I'm going to use my piercing tool to grab a little bit of glue and just place it right there. Okay, so there's you have like a little cone. Now I'm going to take my next petal and I'm just going to put some glue on this area on the front, not on the back like I was doing when I was making this flower or when I was putting the petals on the snowflakes. You're going to put it on the front of it, and then that's going to fit nicely inside your cone like you see there. So put your cone in there. And I like to pinch it a little bit, just so it keeps. Then you're going to do the same thing with the next one. You're going to put some glue, and then just put it there. And since I'm using book paper, it's a little more fragile than if you were using regular cardstock. It will hold up a little more. But I like using book paper because the flowers come out a lot more delicate. And I just like recycling. And plus, you recycle book. So that's what I'm doing. I'm recycling a book. I just like it. I know it's a little more tedious and more delicate, and sometimes could be a little frustrating because the book paper, if you put any water or anything like that, it just gets real thin. And glue, like you can see here, is feeling very thin and delicate. But just be patient. It will look nice. And then see in between, there's a gap here, so I'm just going to lay this one on that gap and hold it. Okay. Same as here, you put some here in this gap and hold it. Probably be more efficient using hot glue, but I just don't want to get burned, so. Put another one here. There's a gap there, so I want to put another one there on that gap. And just pinch it and hold it. Okay. Now we want to go ahead and put this in the center here. So I'm going to put some glue in the center, like you see there. And then I do want to make this a little flat. So let's go ahead and cut. This, I prefer to cut a little bit and make it a little flatter like that. So when I place it down, it will stay down. And see that flower, how pretty that looks? And it's, at this point, it's very delicate because I just put regular glue. You can also insert, like if you feel like you need a little more petals, you can certainly insert it like that. And just don't play around with too much with it because I use regular quick drying glue, so it's still wet, so you don't want to mess around with it too much. Now let's go ahead and create a small little rose, because look how nice it would look if you had a larger rose with a smaller rose. So I'm going to use the smaller snowflake. I'm going to do the same thing. You can see there, the same exact thing. Just take a little bit of adhesive on the backs of your petals. Okay, you're going to go ahead just going to look like that. It looks a little more, it's not as close as this one was, but it's still going to look nice because we're going to fill in each of the gaps, as you can see there. Just fill each of those gaps with another petal. And you know, I don't know how many I use. This one, maybe 12 to 13. I really just, what I do is I cut a lot. I form a lot of these, and I just keep pulling petals and placing them until I get a nice, a nice flower, and I like how it looks. So there, I'm done with that one. Let's set it aside. And then now I'm going to start forming my middle rows. So I'm just going to use this one because I ran out of petals. And this one, you know, I just need to twirl it a little bit. Like this. Put some glue right there. And twirl it. Create a cone, like you can see here. Here's a nice little cone. Then I'm going to do the same. I may need a little more petals, so let me go ahead and form some more petals. Pinch it, and then curve the sides. So you're going to emboss, like I did, and then you pinch the center, and then curl the side. So now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and start right on the inside, not the outside of your petal. You're going to put some glue, then hold it in place. I'll do the same thing with the next one. Flatten it up a little bit, put some glue, put it here. You can always shape it later. Then I need another one here. I'll put one here. And then hold it so it'll dry a little bit. I got too much glue on my hands. Now we're going to put another one. I feel like it needs one here. And let's go ahead and cut. I want to cut that point off so it could be nice and flat like that. Going to put some glue in the center, and I'm going to plop that down right there. And now that I have it down, I can always put more petals in the gaps. Right here, there's a gap. Okay, there's a gap there. And then set that to dry. You see that nice delicate flower? Let's go ahead and set that to dry. I may want to put another one here. Hold on. Okay. And once it dries, you can always put more. So now I'm going to go ahead and use this flower punch. This is a star flower. And I'm going to use that to be my caliph in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and emboss it. Then I am going to just form it. Okay. And then I'm just going to place that down right there. see, you have put that at the bottom, let it dry, and there's your roses. So I hope you like this tutorial, and thank you for watching. Bye now.